Hi, today we're going to talk about inheritance, which talks about genetics. Okay, so when we're talking about inheritance, it's when the offsprings, like the kids, the babies, the childs, receive the characteristics of the parents. And these characteristics can be how tall you are, how short, your size, your shape, your color, the color of your eyes, your hair. You get the idea, right? When we're thinking about things that are inherited, sometimes we talk about blood types. And you know that, for example, if you have A blood or B blood or O blood, one of your parents has to have them. But um, even though blood types are inherited, you get it from your dad or your mom, it is not, blood is not the responsible that passes on the traits, the characteristics. All of the traits are passed from parents to children thanks to chromosomes, thanks to DNA, okay? And chromosomes are the responsible for transmitting these characteristics or traits from one generation to the next, okay? And then a trait may be determined by one pair of genes or by several pairs of genes. And then together they produce an effect, which I'm gonna explain more in a moment. Okay. For the vocabulary today, we have dominant gene. Gene, it's like a part of your DNA. And when we talk about that dominant gene, it's a gene that produces its effect even when an opposite gene is present. For example, you can have, when you have two genes, one gene that says that you're gonna have brown eyes, and then another gene that says that you're gonna have blue eyes. For example, if your mom has brown eyes and your dad has blue eyes, always that dominant gene, it's gonna overpower, it's gonna win against the other one. In this case, brown eyes are dominant, okay? So even if they're opposite genes, the dominant gene, in this case, brown eyes, is gonna win, and when that baby is born, it's gonna have brown eyes. Okay, we're talking about hybrid. Hybrid, or hybrid, it's an offspring resulting from a cross between two organisms different in one or more genes. And here I put an example, for example, with dogs. You have a Labrador, you have a poodle, okay? These are purebred dogs, but if they have babies, they're gonna have a hybrid baby, Labradors, okay? So it's a mix of one dog and the other. So there are different like breeds of dog, diferentes razas. Okay, and then in the vocabulary here we have the word incomplete dominance. So it's when a gene is not dominant, so it's like it produces an intermediate or blended hybrid. For example, if you have a type of flower, here it says 4 o'clock, so it's a type of flower, and you have a red one and a white one, when they reproduce, instead of having white ones or red ones, they're gonna have a mix, pink ones. And then inherit. Inherit means to receive traits from an ancestor. So it means that you're gonna have some characteristics of your mom or maybe your aunt, your uncle, your grandma, you're gonna look like them. Multiple genes, it's when a group of genes affect one trait. So you have many genes that say, for example, you're gonna be tall, or many genes that say that you're gonna have curly hair or straight hair. Okay, purebred, raza pura. It's when an organism has the same genes for a particular trait. Okay, so in this case, it would be the dogs that we were talking at the beginning. For example, a Labrador or a poodle, that they have the same genes, okay? Usually we represent something purebred with capital letters, like capital T and capital T. But when we talk about a hybrid, we say capital T and then lower T, okay? For example, it can be any letter, but you get the idea that it's capital and lower if you're a hybrid, and all capital if it's purebred. And then recessive gene. Remember when we were talking about brown eyes and blue eyes? Okay, so a recessive gene, it's carried by the cells, but it doesn't show its trait as long as a dominant gene is present. For example, if your mom has blue eyes and your dad has brown eyes, you are born and you have brown eyes too. But then you know what happens? When you have a baby, if you marry someone with blue eyes, your kids could have blue eyes because both of you would have that recessive gene. It's a gene that it's not so strong, but when it finds another recessive gene, then it's gonna present itself. Okay, then inheritance. Some human traits have been recorded for a long time. For example, the Bible says that some people had 6 fingers, okay, and that's real. Right now, there are some people that can have 6 fingers, but it's usually weird. And normally, most undesirable traits, for example, something that may look kind of weird or it's not normal, they are recessive genes, so we don't see them that much. Now I want to talk to you about Mendel. Gregor Mendel was an Austrian monk, and is sometimes called the father of genetics. He had a hobby, a really particular hobby of raising plants in the monastery garden. And he did lots of experiments with garden peas, arvejitas, okay? Peas are self-pollinating plants. It means that the pollen from the same flower fertilizes the same flower, okay? So what he would do is he would remove the anthers, that part that has the pollen, so he would cross-pollinate them. So it means that he would use like the egg cells from one plant, but the pollen from another plant, okay? And he would do it really carefully. Why would he do that? Because he was doing an experiment. Mendel noticed that when he allowed pure tall plants to self-pollinate, they would always produce tall plants. And when he allowed dwarf, small, really small plants to self-pollinate, then they would only produce dwarf plants. But then, this is a cool experiment, when he crossed a tall plant with a dwarf plant, the first generation was always tall, okay? But after, like the second generation, it would produce 3 tall pea trees, but then 1 dwarf. Okay, so he realized that being tall was a dominant trait, like that gene was stronger. And then being dwarf or dwarfism was a recessive trait. It was one characteristic that wasn't that strong, okay? And then Mendel discovered the principle of dominance. If there are 2 unlike genes for a specific trait, one gene is gonna usually dominate the other. It's gonna be stronger. And he had a list, like tall peas dominated dwarf ones. Purple color pea flowers dominated white ones. Yellow seeds dominated green seeds. And then smooth seeds, semillas lisas, dominated wrinkle seeds, semillas arrugadas. But the principle of dominance doesn't always holds true, but most of the time, yes. Okay, and then inherited traits are controlled by genes. Scientists, they use letters to represent genes. Since genes occur in pairs, then you have to use 2 letters, okay? One from each parent. And a capital letter, we use capital letter for a dominant gene and a small letter for a recessive gene. Okay, for example, if we're gonna talk about pea plants, and we're gonna talk about the trait of being tall, a tree plant that is gonna be big and tall, okay? So a tall gene would be, we would put it like this. I'm gonna draw capital T, and then a dwarf gene would be lower t, okay? But then since they occur in pairs, genes happen in pairs, you would have to use it like this, double T and TT, okay? And then there's one thing. This is, for example, a purebred plant, and this one too. So this is a purebred plant, but it's tall, and then this is a purebred plant that it's dwarf or short, right? Because we call them purebred because they have the same genes. But then sometimes you're gonna find something like this. This means that this is a hybrid. Okay, so it has different genes, but then we know that the dominant one goes in capital letter. So it's gonna, when you see it, it's gonna look like just like a tall plant. But when it reproduces, it could produce a smaller plant because it's not purebred, okay? I'm gonna erase this. Okay, and then let's go, okay. And then we have the Punnett square. Okay, so Punnett, an English biologist, suggested a series of squares to organize genetic data, genetic information. And you usually put the female parent on top and then the male parent to the left, okay? And I'm gonna explain how you do it, okay? Let's say, I'm gonna draw here. I'm gonna have my Punnett square here. Okay, so let's say we have two plants, okay? We have a plant, or wait, no, I'm thinking not plants, people, okay? You have a mom that has blue eyes and then a dad that has brown eyes, okay? So I'm gonna do it like this. Capital B, it's gonna be brown eyes, and then lower B, it's gonna be blue eyes. Okay, so the dad, okay, so let's see, yeah. So the dad is gonna have blue eyes, no, sorry, brown eyes. And the mom is gonna have blue eyes, right? I'm gonna write down mom, okay, and dad. Okay, so we organize it like this in the Punnett square. And then what do? And let's say, okay, let's say that the dad, it's purebred, so he comes from a long generation of everybody having brown eyes, and the mom, it's a mix. She's gonna have, no, wait. No, sorry. I'm gonna put it like, and the mom comes from all long generations of having blue eyes too. Okay, so we're gonna see a mix, okay? So what we do in this Punnett square, we put it like this, okay? We mix together this B with this B here. This B here with the other one here. This B here, and in this case, because of the characteristics, everything is gonna look the same, see? All of them are gonna be hybrids of brown eyes and blue eyes, and since this is a dominant trait or the dominant gene, all of them are gonna have, it's like we use the Punnett square to show like, what are the chances of their babies having brown eyes or blue eyes. So most of them, all of them are gonna have brown eyes, but if those kids have kids, then they could have blue eyes, okay? And the Punnett square, they show each square represents 1/4 or 25% chances of the kids having these characteristics, but it doesn't mean that it's one kid of 4, because, for example, what happens if you have, I don't know, 100 kids? It would mean that each square represents 25 kids, and then the other 25 kids. You get the idea? It's about fractions or percentage. Let me show you another example, okay? Let's see, we're gonna do it with tallness and dwarfs, okay? So I show you one more example, and then still we can call and talk about it if it's not clear. Okay, so for example, we have a mom and a dad plant, okay? And the mom plant, let's say it's really tall. It's a purebred tall plant, and the dad, it's a hybrid, okay? Oh, sorry, I'm gonna erase this. I'm gonna do it better. Okay. Okay, so it's a mix. When we do this Punnett square, we mix these together. TT, all big, this one big and small, because what I'm doing is putting this together and this together in this square. See, this and this one together in this square. Okay, so what happens? Okay, what happens is that from all the plants, okay, all of them in this case, I'm gonna have half of them, or 50%, are gonna be purebred tall. And then the other half are gonna be hybrids that are gonna look tall, but when they have kids, they could have dwarf ones. Okay, so I hope that's clearer, but still, if you have questions, we can talk about it in the class. I'm just gonna erase this and I'll see you later, okay?